We looked up, and in the sky there was 8 to 10 of these lights, and they were going in like a geometric pattern like this, all at the same time. One shot straight up, and then it came back down like this, no sound. My father, I believe, told us at the time not to say anything because he was afraid that we'd get ridiculed at school. And so we didn't say a word to anyone. This is the first time I've ever talked about it.
The following is my conversation with Cindy Bissett. Cindy is a wonderful human being who I've had a number of conversations with prior to recording this podcast. She was a nurse in crisis intervention for 23 years, and this is the first time Cindy has talked to anyone about this subject on camera. Cindy shares with me an experience that she had when she was 14 years old with around 9 members of her family over their family farm. Really fascinating and compelling story. So the following is my conversation with Cindy Bissett.
Good. Thank you for joining me. So we're right to jump straight in and ask you a few questions.
Okay.
Brilliant. Okay. So first of all, before we dive into your experience, are you able to just give us a bit of a background into your background and you know how you kind of came to that point just prior to your sighting?
Okay, so I worked primarily in I did crisis intervention for 23 years at a shelter for domestic violence. I'm also a nurse. I was married. I had one daughter. I grew up on a farm.
Okay, that's great. Let's jump in then. So talk me through what happened. So roughly when was this?
Okay.
You know, where were you, that sort of thing?
Okay, so I grew up on a farm in rural Ontario. We had 100 acres. And this particular night, we always went for a walk to the back of the farm after dinner. So there was my father, my aunt, my cousins, and I think about 3 or 4 of my siblings. I'm not sure exactly how many. And there was a long lane, and it was lined with maple trees. And at the end was a grove and then a swamp. So we walked to the end of the lane, and Dad said, "Look up," and we looked up. Now keep in mind, we had bunny ears to change the TV channels, so we didn't know what it was we were seeing. We looked up, and in the sky there was 8 to 10 of these lights, and they were going in like a geometric pattern like this, all at the same time. I can't remember how long it was. I was about 14 at the time. I had just started to go to high school. And so we looked up, and we actually thought they were putting on a show for us because we were kids. And one shot straight up, and then it came back down like this, no sound. It was quite intriguing to watch because we didn't know what it was. And then in a blink of an eye, it was gone. And we were just we screamed. The kids, we were terrified because it just instantly disappeared, no sound, and we ran back up to the house. And things continued over, I would say, a couple of months. My father, I believe, told us at the time not to say anything because he was afraid that we'd get ridiculed at school. And so we didn't say a word to anyone. This is the first time I've ever talked about it. My parents, one day they got home from school, the kids, I wasn't there that time. And my parents would never miss a day's work because they were just that kind of people. The kids got in from school, and my mom was standing at the stove in her house coat making breakfast at 4 o'clock. And the kids said to her, "Mom, like, why are you, making breakfast? And she looked at them and said, what do you mean? We're getting ready to go to work. And it was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that was really confusing to us. We didn't understand what that was either. They had gone another night to the show, and they were driving along, and all of a sudden this blue light just went zipping right past the front of the truck, and neither one of them said anything. And a few minutes went by, and my father said to my mother, because I had just talked to him about it before he died, he said, did you see that? And mom looked at him and said, did you see it? Because they couldn't, in their mind, it didn't seem real to them, I guess, is what it was. My brother, who was 9 at the time, we had a long country lane, and we had one neighbor that also had a long country driveway. So it takes a while to get there. And the neighbor had asked him if he would come over and play with the other kids. So mom said, okay. Off he went. He said I just talked to him about it about 2 or 3 months ago. He said he got to the end of our drive and started up the neighbor's drive. And he said he was about a third of the way up their drive. And he said he looked up, and up above him was this silver looking object in the sky with blue lights on it. And he said, instead of running to the neighbors that was closer, he said, I panicked and I turned around and I ran back home and came in the door all out of breath, saying that the blue lights had chased him. So I'm not sure. It just continued.
And have you had this conversation with your siblings since? And as adults, have you sat down
Yes,
and
we
really talked
have.
it through?
Yeah, I talked to my cousin, and she said to me, don't you remember they were putting on a show for us? And my sister Sandy was like this in the grass looking up. So I'm not sure how long this went on. It was a long time ago. So sometimes, your memory can be a little bit foggy.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't know. I just never mentioned it again to anyone.
Did you hear of any other reports from any? I appreciate it was a large area of land and stuff, so your neighbours will perhaps be slightly further away. But did you hear any other reports from neighbouring homes or in the local media?
No, nothing. I don't know about the media because, as I say, we only had 3 TV channels.
Yeah.
We didn't have computers or anything like that. We had bunny ears. So, and to talk about it back in 1970, they look at you like you have 2 heads.
Yeah.
Like.
So just confirm. So did you say it was 1970? Roughly what time? Was it 1970 or in the 70s, you say?
It was around 69 or 70. And I know that because I had just started high school. So I was around 14.
Okay.
And that's
okay. And what sort of time of day was it? Do you recall?
that we saw them?
Yeah.
It was in the evening because we had just had dinner and we wanted to go for a walk down the back of the farm, which we did often.
We often hear links to military bases and nuclear bases where some of these objects are sighted. Are there any near to where you were that you're aware of?
No. Okay. We were in a place called Amaranth County, and it was sparse. Our closest neighbor was about a mile away, other than the one across the road. And so we just never, I was thinking about it on the way over to my niece's today, that I don't understand. Even in my 20s, I never talked about it to anyone.
Yeah.
So,
do you how has it affected you? How has it changed your perception of the human race, of why we're here spiritually? Has it changed you in any way, do you think?
well, all I know is no one will ever convince me that I didn't see that. And I don't care what anyone says. I know what I saw, and I believe what I saw. It's hard to say. The weird thing is, and that's, I don't want to, I don't know. I just think sometimes I'm not sure if they're gone. I know that sounds bizarre. I always feel them around me, even though I don't see them. Does that make sense? I don't know if anybody's ever felt that before, but it just never leaves you. It never leaves you.
I would say from what I've seen and from other witness testimonies, there's appears to be a real link to sort of consciousness and spirituality and
I'm a
sensing or feeling.
spiritualist. That's what I am. Spiritualist, 100%.
Did you feel any kind of feeling about? I've seen in some testimony where people have said, they either received some kind of a message or an idea of a message, or some kind of communication that they couldn't really explain, but something. And then appreciate other people have just seen extraordinary things that they couldn't explain, but there were no other kind of feelings aside from it was unusual. I just felt like I needed to look up. Did you get any kind of sense of communication in any way, shape, or form?
I did. And I know this is going to sound kind of bizarre, and it just happened to me about 8 months ago. I was, I don't know if I was awake. I felt like I was awake, but I felt like I was in a dream state at the same time. I don't know how to explain that. Where I was sitting in my bed, I was sitting upright, and down the hall came this. Now, I hope you don't think I'm crazy. Down the hall came this little being, the one that they describe with the big eyes. He walked into my room, and he went to go to turn, and he turned back. He looked at me. No words were said. And then he just went out and left through my closet, and I just laid down like that and went to sleep. So I really don't know what that was. I think it was a dream, but it didn't feel like a dream, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Do you so I'm assuming that you've seen the stuff that's coming out in the media and the press, and how things have kind of changed significantly in the time that I've been following it, following the subject.
Lots.
It's gone from being this kind of subculture, that late night cable TV that people kind of joke about, to incredibly serious, talking about it at the White House, potentially a threat to aviation, etc., etc. What do you make of that? What do you do you have any kind of feeling as to why it's changed very recently?
Why so many sightings?
Or not so much the sighting element to it, but from a government perspective, why do you think the government's talking about it now, whereas they would just they would have ignored it in the past? Certainly wouldn't be talking about it in national news and in national press and at the White House, the Pentagon and things like that.
Yeah, that's from when I was young. That's a big deal. I think. I don't know why they hide what they know. In my heart, I don't believe they're violent. I don't know why I feel that. I'm not sure, like, why they kept it quiet, other than the fact that maybe if they had something in their possession that they could, like a lot of the videos say, how they're deconstructing them to try and figure out how they work. And maybe they thought it would give them an advantage over other countries if they could figure out how these, but I believe they've always had, before my time even. I was born in 56. So, yeah.
Do you have any kind of a sense of what they are, what they represent? And I asked all my guests this question, and it's a difficult one, because it could be everything and anything. There could be a whole mix, but I'm interested in your feeling towards it, your thoughts towards what it represents. So you kind of alluded to it already, I think, with regards to sort of spirituality. But I'm interested to see if people are able to kind of guide their kind of opinion in one direction. Say, for example, extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers from the past, from the future. Do you have any sense of what you think specifically?
Well, like I say, I don't think they're violent. I just get that sense because they could have hurt all of us when we were below them, and they didn't hurt us. They didn't hurt my parents that night. So I don't really have a fear. I don't know why, but I have a feeling that when we're able to see them, it's because they slow down. And I've said that before. I don't know why I say that, but I think they just go so fast. I think they've always been there, but they can go so fast that our eyes don't pick it up. Now, that's just my personal thinking, but I think they've always been there.
So do you think potentially the kind of, just thinking of hypothesis here, kind of an ancient civilization, something like that? Or do you think from somewhere else and just visiting?
I think it could maybe be a little of both. I'm not sure, but just from seeing the videos online, how they can go right into the water. Like there's a whole world down there. We don't have any idea what's down there. So
yeah,
it's just a feeling, I guess.
Yeah. Since the stuff's come out in the press and Congress and the reports in national media and David Fravor and David Grush and some of these other people coming forward and talking about what they've seen and kind of making it a much more legitimate subject, do you feel, has that sort of helped you in, because you mentioned before that your father had said, we don't talk about this, we'll be ridiculed. And the feeling that you have that you didn't really want to talk about it because it's just perhaps made you uncomfortable, and that kind of association with, well, that person's crazy or something like that from others that haven't experienced it or don't believe it. Now that this has come out, has it changed for you? Do you feel more able to talk about it, or would you feel more able to talk about it?
Yes, I was always able to talk about it because, as I said, I never did. I chose not to. I don't know why, but like I said before, no one will ever convince me of what I saw, that I didn't see it, because I know what I saw. And so there was like 8 or 9 of us that all saw it. So it wasn't just me, My mom's still alive. Her and I were talking about it. My aunt's still alive. She was there. She's in her 80s. So
yeah. It just crossed my mind, actually. I should have probably asked earlier on. Around the area where this object was seen, was there any interference with the land at all that you're aware of? Later on, I know that I'll give you an example as to why I'm asking that question. I know I was researching a case earlier on today. I think it was, I want to say Groom Lake incident where the land had been. There was a report that a craft had kind of come down and a gentleman was involved. And the land had been interfered with, shall we say, and potentially some talk of radiation and stuff. But years later,
saw that.
Yeah, years later, there was a patch of just no vegetation could grow in that area. 50 years later or something like that. Are you aware of anything like that on the land? Was it
No, not that. We never saw anything that really landed. And where it took place was over a swamp, and there was nothing at that time that could have done that. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So
okay, Cindy. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and it's fascinating.
Thank you for letting me talk about it, because really it's the first time I've ever done it, and I think it's great. I have no fear.
Excellent.
And if they ever show up, I'm going to be first in line. So you'll have to wait.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for what you do. I appreciate it. I look forward to your videos. So
thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy.
That. Take care. Bye now.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.